Hanji, welcome to another episode of Not in the Clouds podcast. You're here with your hosts, Sarab Singh, Asa Singh, and Juan Singh. How are you doing, guys? I'm going to ask you how was your week, but forget that. What did you guys watch this week? Let's go straight in.
Mixing it up, Sarab.
Yeah, a little bit.
I wasn't prepared for that one. This definitely wasn't pre-planned. Okay, I've been watching a lot of YouTube, actually. I've not been watching anything on TV. There's a really interesting YouTube mechanic called Matt Armstrong. He lives in Leicester. He trains with Rob Hunspal.
Really?
Yeah. It's just interesting to see how you can take a broken thing and fix it up and make it like brand new. It reminded me of a Japanese philosophy of it, Kinzuki, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Might be butchering it, but Kinzuki. So it's the philosophy that even a broken plate, and they fix it with like gold.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that. It's beautiful. Yeah,
gold
I've seen some
videos.
videos. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Kinzuki. That even a broken thing has value.
And Juan Singh Ji, what did you watch this week?
I've forgotten the title, but did you see that thing about Mr. Bates versus the Home Office? Not Home Office, Post Office.
The Post Office, yeah.
Not the Home Office.
I hope it's not the Home Office.
Yeah, it was Post Office. Have you watched that?
Yeah, I watched the sort of overview of it. I didn't watch the actual
I'm not going to
series.
lie. I haven't watched the whole thing. I haven't even watched all of the first episode. But it's about how there's this system that the post office have created. What was the company? Fujitsu.
Yeah,
Fujitsu, and they've created this system called Horizon.
Yeah.
And they've implemented it across all these post offices across the country. And the model they had at that time was kind of like a franchise model, wasn't it? So everybody had their quote unquote post office, but they were personally responsible for it. And this new system, Horizon, used to falsely record all of the kind of the earnings, right?
Just to interject there, they actually had people sitting in the basement of the server rooms connected to the servers, inputting like live data.
Oh my God.
And changing numbers. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a massive element of human error, and people have lost their houses. It was showing that you're in debt. They took loads of people to court that you're stealing money from the post office, ruined loads of people's reputations.
Yeah.
Really sad. I'm hope I'm going to watch it through and it gets a bit better. But that first episode, was really sad.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't get better.
It doesn't get better. Oh, man.
Spoiler alert. So the post office, the post office had, they've got like a little caveat in the law, which allows them to prosecute. So the post office can prosecute.
Yeah, because they represent the crown.
Yeah.
So they could take people personally to court without going through the traditional court system. And she was going to plead guilty so she could avoid jail time. And her husband says, "Why are you pleading not guilty? You're not guilty."
Yeah.
And he had that anaka that no, don't. But it kind of pushed, it pushed his wife over the edge. I haven't watched it through. I don't know what happens to her eventually. Do you know sort of what happens to her?
No, she's okay. I think she gets through it.
Okay.
But the compensation was minimal. I mean, compensation compared to everything that she went through is not really.
Yeah, because she had to go through so many court cases that there was a bit where he was saying that if she went to jail, she would have been out by now. That's how long the court case took. Really, if you don't want to get your blood boiling, don't watch that show. 100%. What did you watch, Bazi?
I watched a load of rubbish this week. However, one thing I have been reading is a book on flow.
Okay.
It's about mental state, essentially. It was a book that was written in the 90s, but I think it's more than ever applicable. And it's very similar to the Stolen Focus book that I read that I mentioned to you guys a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's about engagement and fulfillment. So how you continually stay happy, but you actually put your thought into everything. You know how Sachabashi says to us, when you have prashada, you're having prashada, you're eating your food, that you should taste each grain of salt in there, each whatever ingredients, you should have that much dhyan in your food, so much concentration in your food that you should be able to taste every ingredient in there and really savor that ingredient. It's the same thing, but it's in everything that you do. You're walking down the street, you've got a million thoughts going on, but you're not feeling the pavement with your feet, are you? You're not actually engaging with the air that you're taking in. It really talks about that in depth, and it goes through different examples in one's life that, you know, you're walking down the street, you're at work, you actually engage in a conversation. And I think I'm reading that book mainly because of like getting together with you guys and doing this podcast. It's one of those things where I thought, let me see how I can better myself, for not just for the sake of the podcast. I think me and Ase were talking on Saturday, quite frank actually, that I'm definitely not doing this for any subscribes, likes, or anything like that. But I feel, I feel that it's one of those things that, you know, this is almost like a journal. This can be like, you know, we're talking to each other now, and 3 years down the line, our thought process probably won't change so much, but we can think how much we've come. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah. I was thinking about it the same way. Like, it's literally, if nobody ever even watches this, I don't really mind. But the fact that we had these memories that for at least an hour of our week, Asi bande banke, we did vichar on the truth. I consider that when I'll get older and I'll hopefully be an old man one day, I can look back and say, "Chalo theek hai, ek ghanta da chaj da kam kita isi hafte."
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Having said that, I mean, a major milestone this week is that we've reached 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Do we care? I'm joking.
All the people that are subscribing, we don't care.
We get to our next podcast and I say 0. Keep your memories to yourself. No, we really do appreciate it. Even though we have no altruism attached to it, we do appreciate the support. It motivates us, even though we're getting a lot of self-fulfillment out of it. I definitely feel so motivated
on
when anybody
the
gives
topic of motivation. Sarab shared with me yesterday. There's another podcast, Indian Doctor.
Okay.
So it's Indie and Doctor, not just Indian Doctor. So it sounds like Indian
Doctor. Okay.
And
it's a play on words.
It's really good actually. And they've been doing a podcast for 3 years now. Okay. And they recently discovered that they've made £7.15 in those 3 years.
Oh, brilliant.
And we're like, well, that's it, a meal deal. We've got a meal deal.
That's no, it's better than what we're at zero. We're at 0 at the moment. So.
That's a coffee each for them. Actually, no, we're not at 0. Revolut helped out a lot.
Oh my god, yeah.
We are sponsored by Revolut.
Can we tell that story?
No, we'll keep that for another day. We'll keep that later down the line.
Fair enough.
Actually, but on the thing that you were talking about, sort of flow state, Formula One drivers have to be in that flow state quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's the concept of being completely focused on one single task and at peak performance, right? And they practice mentally and psychologically the track before they even drive it. So they can visualize each single corner, every single braking point, every single acceleration point in their head before they even get into that car.
Wow.
And that's flow state.
Eckhart Tolle writes about that actually. And he writes in The Power of Now that this is why people enjoy roller coasters. And like these sports like F1 drivers, that when you get put in a position where you're forced to go into the now, that when you're in that F1 car, when you're in that roller coaster, Baji's been bungee jumping, he can attest to this, that in that moment, you cannot think about the past and you cannot think about the future. You're forced into the present. And he says that that's an element of enlightenment. And
do you think being forced into the now is being at harmony with yourself?
100%.
100%.
Yeah, because how I related it to Sikhi was that if you think about it, the present has no future, has no past, right? The now is forever moving, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that the now is forever moving means it has no beginning and no end. And that's akal, right?
Bali said, imagine you are the instrument. So Bali obviously, plays the Darshanai and the Ruba. So imagine you are the instrument and you're being tuned. Mm-hmm. And a Dilruba, any stringed instrument has, is it sympathetic strings and empathetic string? strings.
The sympathetic.
Oh,
I don't know about empathetic, but sympathetic.
Sympathetic strings. So they're like the secondary strings underneath the main string, main chords.
Yeah.
And if they're tuned correctly, they will vibrate as you play the primary chords.
Yeah.
So if you're playing C sharp and you've tuned the sympathetic strings to C sharp, they'll resonate.
Yeah.
And that's what I link to being in the state of now.
Yeah, that's nice. There's what I was going to relate to, sort of what you were saying about flow state, and now nicely actually links to what Faji, what you're saying about the instrument. There's this Buddhist theory about, and it's not around cause and effect, but they give the example, and I'll read it out, is that when the wind blows and the tree moves, right? They say these are not two events. The wind blowing and the trees waving are one and the same process. Independent organization. Where, Asi, do you remember that example Sansa Naam used to give us about the mother and due to her knowledge of where I am, the wind exists here, and where my child is, the wind exists there. And due to that knowledge, there was no difference between the wind that where she was and the wind where that child was. And due to that knowledge, she rocked her baby to sleep, even though they weren't even close to each other. I don't know if you agree, but I think this all kind of is around that concept.
How does one live in harmony with everything that's around them? With, you go to school with people who look different than you. You attend university with people you don't live with. You've all congregated in another city. Maybe you moved away from home. How does harmony exist with your community settings, your community backgrounds, your religious beliefs, your spiritual alignment?
I think we can never end conversation.
Yeah.
And what that means is we should always be discussing things with people that disagree with us or agree with us or are at a different level of whatever we agree with or disagree with. And slowly, as a society, when we move away from discussing things to see and not be tribalistic, I think that is, in my opinion, the road to harmony, is to always be open to people disagreeing with you. And through that disagreement, not thinking that now they have become my enemy due to this disagreement, but they are still mine. And when I say mine, they are still in this wider kind of mankind family, if we want to call it that.
Yeah. The human race, right?
Yeah, human race. But even beyond that, trees, plants, animals, insects, that realizing that we're all here on this temporary experience, and whatever we do is having an impact. And while we're here, wouldn't it be great that we all supported each other?
Yeah.
The collective conscience.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's something recently that's bringing everybody together at the moment, and that's conscription and the potential of being conscripted into the army.
Oh, really? Is that happening?
Everybody collectively. You've not yet. Okay.
No, I haven't. Oh, is it because of like the Russia-Ukraine situation?
Yeah. Where everybody collectively is like, this is not the generation that you want going to war, because we're used to like work from home and like comfort. Like, I'm calling in sick. I can't make it to war. You guys carry on.
Call in sick to war.
Where's my Jaffa cakes?
I can't deal with Dalia.
That's
bananas and blueberries as well.
That's brilliant. Okay, so what are you trying to get at there? Like, what's the ultimate?
Basically, pull your OCI card out because it's going to dust it off.
Yeah, exactly. Where is this coming from, though? Like, is it moving away from harmony? Do you think?
No, well, there's two sides of it, isn't it? I think whenever anybody's oppressed or has a feeling that they're being marginalized, it brings people together, and it brings out power in numbers, and then you collectively recognize yourself as one race. It was that thing that you mentioned, Juan, that back in India, before partition and there was British rule, an oppressive regime, you would have Muslim water and Hindu water.
Yeah,
and when that existed, people were harmonistic. They came together against a common enemy.
What was the difference there, Asa, in terms of Hindu water and Muslim water? I mean, water's one, right?
It's the psychology behind it, isn't it? It's that divide and rule that the British wanted to implement to either have one minority come up against the other, or the other, and whilst we battle with each other, whilst Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs battle with each other, then the British, who are looking after their shareholders back in England, can get away with famine in Bengal, can get away with just ripping riches out of India for their own gain. So keeping everybody busy in their own minor conflicts of either ethical conflicts or religious conflicts. And I think we're seeing that in maybe Gaza as well.
They used that against us, didn't they? Like when we look at the Malerkotli Shaheed, they're using the torps, the cannons from the Sikhs. They're getting the people that are firing the cannons. They are also Sikh, and they're firing the cannons against Sikh. One of the Shaheeds, they've gone there, and their Mammaji is the one that the British are saying to fire the cannon.
So the maternal uncle.
Yeah, the maternal uncle. And when he sees that his nephew has come to become Shaheed, he stops. And maybe it relates to that element of harmony, that that person's concept of harmony in that moment was those that are my family are mine, and those that are not mine are not mine. And it goes back to that tribalism or that family ties kind of concept. And I think I mentioned this in the first podcast about Anukul Gyan and Pratikul Gyan. And how Santaji was saying in Brahm Gyan, meaning to attain the ultimate reality or the ultimate connection to truth, that this is the main and the biggest blocker for that, is seeing some people as your own and some people as not your own. And I think Guru Nanak Dev Ji is definitely throughout their life being a revolutionary in terms of what they're writing with their pen and what they're writing with their paper. Like from that perspective, whatever they're saying is sharper than a sword, right? But from the other perspective, they're also confronting the humankind of why can you not realize others as your own kind? So on one side, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is definitely not a pacifist, but on the other side, Sadhguruji is definitely questioning us.
Do you know sometimes how, and I think you mentioned this, Sarab, that it just feels like the universe comes together and the pieces of the puzzle fall into place? Because I was listening just randomly to an Upadesh today from Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji, and they talk about Jab tare kau bari meet, tab lagane chal nahi cheet. And they're saying that why is it the mind is always restless? Why is it never in that flow state of that peak performance? It's because as long as we consider other people to be friends and foes, we will never be at peace. Because, like you say, Joanne, tribalism, these are my friends, these are not my friends. You'll never get to that flow state.
I think the difference is all detaching you from your one goal, detaching you from your one aim, and that is to solely think of everything, everyone as, not even an ang of them. It is a version of them. We go back to, I think, every episode of this podcast we've touched upon Bhai Kanhaiya's life. I think we should even just do one whole podcast on Bhai Kanhaiya, because they come up in all of our podcasts, but their example is so poignant. It means so much that they saw everyone as one. They didn't see a Sikh army or a Mughal army. They saw Sach Bhattaji in every single person on that battlefield.
I think I was reading something about this, and I think this is where maybe some people get confused, and it's something I struggled with actually. But it's the realization that Sikhi is talking about these multiple stages, right? Where in some cases Guru Nanak Dev Ji are calling people out on their hypocrisy. And we might think that, in that moment, is Sadhguruji realizing them as their friend or their foe? But I think that's a wrong assumption, because Sadhguruji in that state is thinking about the ultimate good, right? Or the ultimate benefactor of this, which is harmony, right? And by questioning people who are maybe the few, this is then going to benefit the wider mankind, right? And I think this is why Sadhguruji talks about those 4 stages in Lama. They talk about the different khands, where, for example, Dharam Khand is purely about talking about karam, meaning what actions are you doing, and ethics, right? About your dharam, which is basically your ethics, and how even that dharam is universal. Don't think that what you consider to be true as a separate truth and what other people to believe as true as a separate truth. That this truth is forever moving, right? And it doesn't mean that, this truth was realized once by this murshad, or this truth was realized once by this guru. That truth is going to be kept on being revealed, whether it's by science or whether it's by spiritually elevated people, that constantly that truth's going to be revealed, no matter if you like it or not. And it's that quote that I put in the chat actually before we was going to start, is Guru Nanak separates pedantic philosophy from religion and declares it to be mere gymnastics of the mind. In our mind, we can think about philosophy, we can think about religion and how these things separate us, or how we believe in this siddhant and you believe in this siddhant. But that is just gymnastics of the mind. Really, when you become in that flow state, like what Baji was talking about, you realize that actually all along it was one.
Everyone always says, who is the first Sikh Shaheed? And Jawan Singh's found something. I mean, it's not new information.
No, it's not new. So I was reading this book, actually. It's translated by somebody called Exis-ten-tial, right? And it talks about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's travels to Makkah and the Arab peninsula. And here it says, when they reached the Middle East, they're in Makkah and Baghdad. And one thing I didn't know, that Sadhguruji was there for about 1.5 to 2 years.
Wow.
And when actually we read this, we think, Sadhguruji went there, they pointed their feet at the Kaaba, and then they went back. Actually, they were there for a while, right? And here they talk about that somebody was with Guru Nanak Dev Ji during those travels, and it was somebody called Tajuddin. Tajuddin stays with them, and they document Sadhguruji's travels, who speaks to Sadhguruji, and then they publish this book. Later on, in about 4 centuries later, somebody finds Tajuddin's manuscript, and his name is Mushtaq. Right? He takes those and he writes notes on that, and he then he converts those notes into a book, and he calls it Tariq-e-Arab. Right? And he talks about the people that are accompanying Guru Nanak Dev Ji at that time. And then later on, Mushtaq's notes are then translated and then become the basis of a Punjabi book called Babe Nanak di Baghdad Pheri. This is the kind of background where I'm getting this reference from, right? He talks about Guru Nanak Dev Ji being in Makkah. He talks about all these questions that are being asked to him. And then later on, he speaks to Qazi Ruknuddin. And anybody that knows, Qazi Ruknuddin is mentioned elsewhere in the Karni Nama. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji also writes about Qazi Ruknuddin, about this conversation Guru Nanak Dev Ji has with Qazi Ruknuddin about how in the future there will be the Khalsa, right? And how then they'll re-establish the Khalsa again. And obviously, as Naamdaris, we believe that is talking about how when Guru Ram Singh Ji re-establishes the Khalsa Panth. So anyway, here it talks about when Qazi Ruknuddin is talking to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he asks a couple questions. One question is about why don't you cut your hair? Should we keep our hair? This is one of the questions. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that no, you should keep your hair. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji's opinion at that time is saying that according to the Quran, you shouldn't be cutting your hair. And actually says that Guru Nanak Dev Ji quotes the Quran. How that happens, it shows that Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually had knowledge of the Quran at that time, of what is written in the Quran. Qazi Ruknuddin is so inspired by Guru Nanak Dev Ji at that time, where Sadhguruji inspires him so much, and he gets endued with the love of Akal Purkh. And he starts meditating, and even while being in Makkah, right, he goes to the mountains and he spends time in caves to meditate on the One. Right. Then somebody else called Amir, who was a Shah at that time, like a very high cleric, says, "Why have you accepted Guru Nanak Dev Ji as your murshad? Murshad meaning your spiritual guide." Right. Yeah. And they declare Ruknuddin, meaning the Qazi, as a kafir, meaning a non-believer. Right. And during that time, then Amir and the other qazis at that time, they declare him as a kafir, and they release these following fatwas. And fatwas in Islam are the same as what we would call like hukm-e-naame, right? And in there it says he is declared as a murshid, and also Nanak Shah. It doesn't say Guru Nanak, it says Nanak Shah is also declared as a kafir. Give him 30 lashes, then lock him in a box without food for 11 days. Drive his kin from this country. It also says here that actually his descendants live in the mountains of Afghanistan. So it says that that's where they were banished to. It says confiscate all his wealth, paint his face black and walk him through Makkah, hang him upside down, and bury him to his neck in sand, and then stone him to death. Right? And this all happens. And it says that when they're documenting what's happening, right? They're saying Qazi Rukunuddin is not affected by any of this. It's the hot heap of Arabia, and he's not affected by any of this. And then at the end, the Shah says, now is your last words, let's document them. And he says this one thing that he remembers, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji says to Qazi Rukunuddin, make sure you share your experiences. And Qazi says, this is my perfect opportunity. And the translation of what he says is, my religion and my God is Guru Nanak.
Wow.
And as he says that, or the pran nikal jande ne, or shaheed ho jande ne, and all of the people at that time that came to stone him, they didn't even get the opportunity to. He doesn't follow Guru Nanak Dev Ji, so he stays in Makkah. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, you don't have to follow me back to India, meaning that this isn't something you have to follow me back to India now. You're my follower. Follow me everywhere. He stays a Muslim, right? But yeah, he adopted these teachings from Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And I think what this relates back to, because I see this question quite a lot, but the commonality of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings was promoting recitation of the God's name.
Yeah.
And Guru Nanak Dev Ji saw that as common to all religions. Christianity is talking about hallowed be thy name, right? In Islam, there are the 99 names of Allah. Even in Judaism, they have the concept of Yahweh. Even they have such respect for God's name, they don't even write it. So they write capital G-D. That's how much respect they have for God's name. And this is what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying, that his name, Naam that his name is the ultimate reality.
But I don't understand that. So the power of the name, how is there so much power in that name?
It's a good question. It's one of those existential questions, right? In Sikh.
I love it.
What kind of questions, Joel? Say that again.
I think I mispronounced it.
I can't say it.
Existential.
Existential.
Yeah.
Are you
I think we're all saying it wrong. Bloody existential. Yeah, I think actually I was listening. Oh man, it's funny. What is the name for tongue twister in Punjabi?
Good question. You guys are the Pindus.
No, but I was laughing because I was saying something in Punjabi and I did a tongue twister. And then my wife said, this is how you say tongue twister in Punjabi. And I tongue twisted that. Yeah. What was your question? Yeah, I think Guru Ram Singh Ji actually is talking in their Hukmname that those people that only recite the Naam, those people forget a lot, meaning that they start doing it and then they stop. Sadhguru says those people that also read Bani alongside reciting Naam, those people don't forget. And then Sadhguruji says, Gurbani Naam di guna da uchar karti hai. Meaning, the more you learn about that Naam, the more kind of knowledgeable you get about it. And this isn't like a prerequisite, but I think logically it makes sense, is that the more you associate to that Naam, the more you understand it. And it's not just through reading, but it's through experience as well, I think.
We talk about Sikhi being a journey through life, and it's one of those things that I think it's an important question to hold on to as you progress through life. What is Naam? Because I think it will change as you progress through life. Because in Gurbani, you'll read things like Naam ke tare khand Brahmand, the universe and the cosmos was created through Naam. But then, you ask that question again, and then you get the answer Naam tol ka chabar na hoye, that Nothing is in comparison to the Naam. Doing Havans, Varnis, all these things
and it also
don't
talks
equate to
about
that.
you receiving it as well. Manhe pragas peo pramanasyo mantir dio gurkan. Where it's talking about it's something you receive as well. But then also it says, "Naam to bina aur kuch hai nahi. Sare ode naam ne. Everything you see is him." So yeah, I like that how you.
I still find it difficult to contemplate what Naam is, and that's maybe because I haven't, sat there and in contemplation of the Naam. What would interest you, Asa, as a 10-year-old kid, or if you were interested at the time, what would interest you in taking up the understanding of Gurbani? Is it the English explanations on the screen? Is it the melody that it's sung to? Is it somebody's explanation to it?
I think it would be somebody bringing that Gurbani to life.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like when Bali, sometimes what he does is before he sings the Gurbani, he'll share the meaning of it, and he'll share how it's a story and how it has a climax and a moral. It has to begin somewhere, right? So I think reading and bringing it to life are important for me.
But why? Why do we need to read Gurbani?
Let's rephrase that question. We talk about Gurbani, but why do we need to go to school? Why do our parents push us to go to school? We're in positions now in our careers where we could look back and there are elements of our education that have helped us or shaped us. I think one thing you mentioned this really nicely, that everybody has a university degree. It doesn't mean you're special, but that going through that molding process of I showed up every single day, or I showed up most of the days, and I committed to delivering something at the end of it is more valuable to an employer than a piece of paper. Wanting to spiritually elevate yourself, wanting to progress in life. If we want to progress ourselves professionally within our careers, then we should have something similar we have mental health. We should have something for our spiritual health as well.
I do agree with what you said, actually. But I think an element that relates to that is that moving post, right? That your understanding of life is a moving thing. I don't think it's something that should stay stagnant, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
A week where I think I haven't read anything, I haven't really learned anything, I genuinely feel sometimes I wasted the week. And this is why I love doing the podcast, actually. It forces me to actually look into things, which otherwise, being honest, you get to a certain point, you become content and you don't push yourself. And I think as youth in general, maybe if it's talking about the Gurbani directly, right? Let's say, okay, you've learned Japji Sahib, like you get all these young kids, they learn Japji Sahib off by heart. But I think the better seed to plant is always have a thirst for knowledge. Right? Always question things, and it relates back to Yudhishthir and Indrajit Singh ji, Rakbabai Wale. They were talking about in one of their katha. He was talking about the Muqtnama. And Muqtnama, the history behind that is where one Sikh, Lahora Singh, is talking to this other Sikh, and he's taken some of his money, right? And he's interpreting Gurbani incorrectly. And he's saying, if I've taken the money from a Sikh, in Gurbani it says, Lekha koi na puchhei, ja gurbak sanda. I don't care, I've taken your money. When I'm dead, I believe in the Guru. Lekha kisine nahi puchna. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji comes and says, Hak par aaya nanaka usur us gaye, gurpir hamma ta par, ja murdar na khaye. The Guru Sachipashi says that's always also written there, meaning the Guru is important in that situation. If he was on his own, he would have the wrong understanding of Gurbani. After explaining all of this, they give this Upadesh, and it's written in Sausakhi, and then it's translated or kind of rewritten in the Gur Pratap Suraj Granth by Sant Santokh Singh Ji, Mahakav. And they call it the Muqtnama. And in there it says, the Ped of Sach both Sukham Peda, meaning the definition of the truth is very thin, right? And he says that, he gives the example. Dharmaraj wants to test Yudhishthir. And he comes in the form of a kasai, meaning a butcher. A cow is running past Yudhishthir and says and sees that this kasai is running after him, right? And then the kasai comes to Yudhishthir and asks, did you see where the cow went? And he wanted to see, does this person speak the truth? And Yudhishthira thinks for a second. He says, my eyes saw it, but my eyes cannot speak. My tongue didn't see it, but my tongue can speak. But my tongue didn't see where the cow went. And Dharmaraj says, Sachi, in this way that, yes, you speak the truth. And only somebody that's contemplated on the truth can even think in that creative way, right? If it was in our situation, either we would lie. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji says that he said the truth, but also protected the cow. That comes up at several times in Yudhishthira's life, where also when he's in Gurukul, his teacher is teaching him, and he sees in one of the sloks, it says, Krodha na karo, right? Meaning don't get angry. And his teacher asks him, how much have you learned? And he says, I haven't learned that much. But what I have learned, main paka deta, meaning that is firm within me.
Yeah.
And he says, why haven't you learned all of it? And he says, I thought, let me finish the first one, then I'll move on to the second one. I haven't finished the first one yet, right? He keeps going. They call his father as well. And in front of the father, okay, why does he keep questioning?
Yeah.
And he's still a dollar, meaning he didn't affect him at all, right? And then the teacher says, what did you learn? And he says, Guruji, it said they krodha na karo. So I'm practicing that.
Yeah.
And the Guruji also accepted that, yes, sachi tusi ye cheez nu paka liya, meaning you've become firm in this. So each of these individual teachings, they're only valuable once you're firm in them. Right.
Yeah.
And I think maybe when you're saying about when you're a 10-year-old and how to make Gurbani interesting, again, our full circle, I think, is that thirst for knowledge. And instead of it just being knowledge, actually doing something with it.
And let's be honest, like, unless you're actually sitting there reading it, meditating, only in that instance are you in that flow state. Whereas by Kanhaiya and these other people who, Yudhishthira, they're living the tenets breath by breath every single day. We're only ever in that flow state momentarily, and then we take that gyan and preach it. We're like, Abba kuch mada karke bola bura pala kaho kisno kahiye. You know what I mean?
We use it in the wrong way.
Yeah, we use it in the wrong way because we're only in that state momentarily. But can we honestly say that nothing makes us angry or nothing makes us furious at the state of the world? I don't think we can.
I think another thing that Jawan Singh mentioned is akal. So in the book that I was reading earlier, I'm just looking at one of my notes there, timelessness, right? So experiencing flow can alter your perception of time, making hours feel like minutes. This intense focus can create a deep sense of joy and contentment. Let's go on to our favorite segment. I want to say it's not really favorite, but what did you guys learn today? I know we opened with what did you guys learn, but what was the one specific fact that you've learned this week?
So what I learned this week, and I was reading, maybe this, I don't know if you were going to ask this question. Maybe I'm going a bit too far ahead, but I was reading a book this week, the Mahabharata translation by John D. Smith. It says, it relates back to our first episode about superstition. It says there that anybody that keeps the full version of Mahabharata in their home, they're bound to have conflict in their life. And this is a belief, right?
Yeah.
And I was saying to this mom, like, Mom, like, it says this in this book. Did you know about this? And I was like, oh, lucky, like on the first page it says it's the abridged version, so it's not the full version, I'm all right. And,
do you know what doesn't make sense for me, though? Okay, by you keeping a Mahabharata, the complete edition in your house, that's going to cause conflict in the house. But then what about the 5-6 hours that people spend watching Star Plus? And that's just full of conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
You've moved on from TikTok documentaries to Star Plus.
It's not even called Star Plus anymore. It's Utsav Plus. Just full of drumming.
I like that. Shouting. I like how you related it to that. Maybe we need to turn it on its head.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. That look, if you don't want conflict in your house, stop watching these stupid serials.
Today's top tip: Maybe that's a segment.
Yeah. Don't watch all of these Sasgabo, all this kind of stuff.
Watch
mate.
Mahabharat.
Yeah.
Not
So-
the new versions anyway. Mine
Yeah,
on its head
original
was
one, yeah.
weird, man. Yeah.
The new one. I've not seen the new one.
I haven't seen the new one, but
Yeah.
it takes too long. Like it takes like 5 episodes to achieve anything.
I started watching Mahabharat, and the first 7 episodes was like all about the Pandavas, and I was like,
No, definitely.
Come on.
This translation is
Yeah.
decent. The only thing I'm struggling with is the pronunciation of the names.
Chalo,
But
Asif,
yeah, what's the
what
next
did you
one?
learn?
Sorry, I took way too long explaining that.
No. Well, I've sent you all a picture, and I want you to open that picture on WhatsApp.
No.
Okay.
It's an animal.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Does
well,
it identify as an animal?
Yeah. You all
Wombat.
seen it, yeah?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you know it's a wombat.
Yeah.
It says wombat underneath.
Yeah.
Oh right. Okay, I wrote wombat.
You weren't going to write that, innit?
I forgot. So it's a wombat. Did you know wombat poo is square?
We went through this before. I'm sure we did this before.
Not in an episode. I've told you in private, but now it's public.
How?
I'm sure,
Like,
I'm sure
perfectly-
we did that. I'm sure we went through
Is it?
this.
Wait. Is it 2-dimensional square or 3-dimensional?
Yeah, cube. Yeah, it's a three-dimensional square.
Doesn't that hurt when it comes out?
Nah, buddy, forget it, man.
Don't
That's not
visualize
true.
it. I know
That's
you're
not
visualizing. You're a
true.
good. I know you're a strong visualizer, sir, but don't.
That's not
just don't.
true, man. You can't.
It is-
That's like one like in Minecraft.
Right. It's my turn now,
Wait, I
right?
need to Google that, man.
Before you Google it, I've sent you something on WhatsApp.
Okay.
You guys have been really good at pronouncing things today, so I think these are one of the days where I'm going to get you to pronounce that word.
Oh.
Oh wait, okay.
Go on, Asa.
Is it a Japanese word?
It is a Japanese word, yeah.
Oh.
We all know I do a good African accent. Can I do a Japanese accent?
Who's
No,
gonna go
no.
first? Is it me or you?
Go on, Joan Singh. You do it
right.
before Asa gets racist.
Yeah.
You're putting a Punjabi twang on it, though.
Itadakimasu.
Go on, Asa.
Itadakimasu.
Yeah, you know what? That's
That was
exactly
good. That
what
was
it is.
good. Yeah, that
I'm
was
not
good.
culturally appropriating it.
Yeah, no, that was
Itadakimasu.
good.
That is.
That felt nice,
Itadakimasu.
like hearing
That's
it, like in the deep voice. That was
What does it mean?
So it has got a really nice meaning to it. So it's a Japanese phrase that means to humbly receive. So what it means, often said before eating a meal, and it's a way of showing gratitude and respect for everything and everyone that made that meal. So that's the farmer, that's the person in the kitchen, that's everything. So that word encapsulates all of those people behind making food.
Nice.
Do you know
So
what
it's
I
like
find
proper
amazing? It's not just a word then, is it? It's more of a
It's like
feeling.
a concept, yeah. It's like, feeling, yeah, exactly.
So it's that gratitude before you eat. And first thing that we talked about was the dhyan in everything, your concentration in everything that you do. So
like
when you guys go for a walk,
How did you find that
What
word?
do you-
Like, how did you find that?
so I was watching. It wasn't a TikTok documentary, but I went down a YouTube rabbit hole essentially, and it was 8 things Japanese, 8 things to do with Japanese culture, and this was like number 6 or number 7 or something. But I found it poignant. It was really cool.
No, I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Nice one, guys. Thank you very much for that episode. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the week up to the episode. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.